At the engineer's office, we work together like a team.
Every role down here, a person has the opportunity to lead in their own position.
No matter what your title is, we are all an important part of the process.
Everybody's trying to help one another, and it's just a great camaraderie among the team members.
My name's Jim Flays. I'm the Geauga County Prosecutor. This is Scott Hildebrand, the County Sheriff, Chris Hitchcock, County Treasurer, and this is Rick Warner, one of the prosecutor investigators who specializes in electronic crimes. There's your packet there. If you want to look at the packet, there's who's speaking. There's kind of a summary of my comments. We will take questions at the end. There's also some other documents in there relating to the appointment of a special prosecutor for another part of this case. And there are copies of the 2 indictments that were recently filed relating to the former IT director and his daughter. So again, thank you for coming. I wanted to announce today that the Geauga County Grand Jury has returned indictments against our former IT director, Stephen Decatur, and his daughter, Stephanie Stewart. Mr. Decatur resides in Munson Township here in Geauga County. Ms. Stewart resides in Akron. They are each 334-count indictments. These include charges of engaging in a pattern of corrupt activity, which is Ohio's racketeering statute, aggravated theft of $1.5 million or more. Both of those are felonies of the first degree. There's also counts for theft in office, money laundering, and having an unlawful interest in a public contract. There's additional counts of telecommunications fraud and receiving stolen property. 322 of the counts involve the money laundering activities. In September of 2017, an auditor's office employee contacted the prosecutor's office about some irregularities relating to a vendor that the county was doing business with. That vendor was SMCS Tech, a company out of Fairlawn, Ohio. At the time, it was determined that over the course of about a year, the county had paid this vendor approximately $260,000 for IT services. At that point in time, Rick Warner from the prosecutor's office and other law enforcement officials began investigating this vendor, and it was quickly determined that the owner and operator of this company, SMCS Tech, was in fact our IT director's daughter, Stephanie Stewart. At that point in time, because of the transactions involved, and also because of some other information that was discovered during the investigation, a forensic accountant was retained. The county did retain Scoda Minotti to perform a forensic audit of many transactions that the county has engaged in over a number of years. During this investigation, the prosecutor's office determined that Mr. Decatur, the former IT director, who at the time was the IT director, as IT director, he had diverted money to his daughter and himself through a series of invoices and bank transactions. The total amount of money involved that Mr. Decatur and his daughter diverted to themselves is approximately $1.8 million over an approximate 8-year period. During this investigation and following the indictments, the case is still being investigated, but we've taken a number of steps to not only prosecute the wrongdoers, but also recover the taxpayer money that has been stolen. We are committed to prosecuting both the people who have been indicted, and I do expect that there may be additional indictments in the future. We have taken steps to freeze Mr. Decatur's Public Employees Retirement Systems pension account. That has been frozen pending the outcome of this case. I have filed a claim with the county's insurance carrier in order to recover these monies under our theft loss protection. And also, because there is racketeering charges involved, we are in the process of filing liens against real estate owned by Mr. Decatur in Geauga County and real estate owned by Ms. Stewart in Summit County. In addition to these indictments, I will tell you that there are many facets to this investigation. One of them, logically, is how did this happen? How did the auditor's office pay out all this money over an 8-year period of time? Who approved these contracts? There were no contracts. There was no competitive bidding for these services. And that portion of the case, the investigation into the auditor's office and how these bills were paid and how these services were obtained without contracts, without competitive bidding, is being handled by a special prosecutor. Back in December, I asked the court to appoint a special prosecutor to investigate those matters. Judge Burt from our Common Pleas Court did appoint attorney Brian Kostura, who's a partner at McGlinchey Stafford here in Cleveland. He is serving as a special prosecutor, and he is pursuing investigation of those other matters. I will also tell you that we are going to answer questions today, but the grand jury is still investigating this matter. The grand jury continues to be impaneled, and there are other persons and entities that are still the subject of our investigation, so there may be some questions that I just cannot answer at this time. At this point in time, I wanted to turn it over to Sheriff Hildebrand to discuss the status of the case on what's gone on today. Thank you.
Hello. Just to put this in perspective, Steve Decatur is the chief IT guy for the whole county, had all the keys to the kingdom. It affected every one of the offices in the county. We all had to get permission to do things through him, and he had all the control over this. So this has affected everybody. I think it's a great testament to the way we can work together in this county with the prosecutor's office and the other law enforcement offices. One thing that was significant for our office, in the scheme of things, it was kind of small, but several years ago we had purchased computers for all of the police cars and fire trucks in the county. And when we went to deploy those computers, there was one missing. And those computers at the time were those Panasonic Toughbooks, cost about $3,500 a piece. And that computer was located at his house when we did the search warrant. He would tell stories of being in Homeland Security. He actually had a Homeland Security sticker on that computer. And although compared to the $1.8 million, it wasn't much, it meant a lot to us because he was actually the one that was trying to help us find this computer. He said that anytime that comes on, we're going to know, we're going to track it. He even alluded to some of the other employees that may have taken it, and this whole time he had it in his house. So it was very disappointing for us with that part of the computer issue. This afternoon, or this morning, Stephanie was taken into custody. She was arrested at her home in Akron, and she's currently at the Geauga County Safety Center. That's it.
Quickly, I did want to mention, Stephen Decatur was charged back in October when the Sheriff's Office and our office executed the search warrant at his home on Heath Road. He was arrested at that time, and he was processed through municipal court, and that case was bound over. He's currently out on bond with a monitoring bracelet, but this was a direct indictment against Stephanie. The other thing I quickly wanted to mention, a lot of people helped with this case. This was extremely difficult to investigate because we could not use our computers to investigate it. I quickly found out how much we rely on technology because Mr. Decatur had control over all of the county's computer systems. We could not utilize any electronic means within our network to perform the investigation. Also, because Mr. Decatur worked for the auditor's office, because by law the auditor is the chief administrator of IT in the county, I could not go through the auditor's office to find out information regarding vendor payments and other bank issues. And that's why I really wanted to commend the treasurer's office for assisting with that. Without the treasurer's office help, and Treasurer Hitchcock and his chief deputy treasurer who's here, they spent an enormous amount of time helping us compile all these transactions, compile all the banking information, and we were able to do that without going through the auditor's office because we did not want to tip off any subjects of the investigation. I also want to specifically thank prosecutor's investigator Rick Warner. He was brought on about 1.5 years ago in the county as an electronic crimes investigator, and that was one of the best decisions I've ever made. I could not have done this without him. His specialized skill set was critical in investigating this matter and processing the just hundreds of thousands of emails and other electronic data that we've had to go through to really get our case established. The FBI, the Department of Homeland Security, and the Chester Township Police Department also assisted us in our investigation. I wanted to thank them. And I will note, and I put it in the summary, but the grand jury's found probable cause that these individuals have committed these crimes, but they are innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. So it's our job now as prosecutors to take this case to common police court and prove these allegations that the grand jury have found. I don't know if you have any comments or at this time, or we'll take questions.
I'll keep my mouth shut.
Okay. So at this time, any of us would be happy to take any questions anyone may have.
Prosecutor, does SMCS exist anywhere but on paper?
I don't believe so. Through our investigation, we found that it appears to just exist on paper. There is not an office, it's a post office box. They do have a taxpayer ID number in that. It was set up through the Secretary of State, but there's just a post office box. If anything's being run, it appears to be run out of Ms. Stewart's home. And when we did a part of the financial investigation, which is a significant part of this case, there were not any expenses that you would normally associate with a business, especially an IT business.
The SMCS involvement seemed to be over the past 11, 12 months, something like that. You talked about 8 years. What other types of transactions prior?
Well, I don't want to, because the investigation's still pending, I don't want to get into the identity of the other vendor, but there is another vendor that the county's done business with for approximately 8 years. When we began, and that is a legitimate company, when we began investigating SMCS and we pulled all of their bank records, we found payments from this other vendor to SMCS. So what was discovered in investigating SMCS is that a long time ago, approximately 8 years ago, a system was set up by the IT director where the county was utilizing a legitimate company, and then that company was directing monies to his daughter's company.
Kickback?
Again, that part's still under investigation, but that is, those are the issues that the grand jury is currently examining.
You said there was no contracts for any of these, but was there actually work being done?
In most of these instances, we have determined that work was not done. Any issues relating to SMCS, any work that was done appears to have been done by the IT director himself. So what we have here is a situation where, as the IT director, he's directing monies to subcontractors which are ending up in his pocket. And in some instances, no work was performed, or our employees in-house were already performing that work.
Does the county have any policies, procedures in place that would cause them to flag, any sort of conflicts of interest, directing money to businesses owned by relatives or friends, anything like that? Is there anything in place at the moment?
Well, directing money to yourself or a relative is a felony. So that's having an unlawful interest in a public contract. But issues relating to policies and procedures and how this happened, that really is an issue with the auditor's office, and that's what the special prosecutor's handling. So I defer questions to him.
Jim, there was a suggestion that as part of the investigation, communications were discovered between Decatur and his daughter talking about exploiting a lack of oversight in the auditor's office. Can you comment on that at all, what your investigation has found?
Well, again, there's two parts to this investigation. So there's the part that we're prosecuting, which is the theft of funds. The issues relating to how this happened within the auditor's office, those are matters that the special prosecutor's investigating. So that's really in kind of his realm.
Do you know about how many different transactions there were over these 8 years to get to that 1.8 million?
Hundreds. I would say there are hundreds. I have a list of them. I didn't count them up, I'm sorry. But there are hundreds of transactions.
Among the liens on the property, the insurance, and the pension, what do you expect the loss might be to the county?
That's undetermined at this time. I mean, my goal is to recover 100% of the money, and that's what I'm working to do. We do have a pretty good insurance policy, fortunately, for the county. And again, with the grand jury's ongoing investigation, there may be other parties brought into this that would be a source of funds.
Would the county's insurance cover SCOTA Manata, the appointment of the special prosecutor, you know, all those additional sort of costs that the county taxpayers are incurring to investigate this case?
Unfortunately, no. That is restitution that we can pursue from the wrongdoers. But again, you know, most if not all of this money has been spent apparently, according to our forensic accountant, which is not unusual in these cases. But no, the insurance generally does not cover costs of investigation.
Do you know what they were spending this money on?
Just daily living expenses. That you know, just living a lifestyle. Those were, you know, again, while the number is large, it is over a period of 8 years. So when you have 2 households spending that money over a period of 8 years, you know, it becomes, in a weird way, almost understandable how you could spend that much money during that amount of time.
I saw a reference to some overseas deposits or transfers, water transfers, that sort of thing. Can you explain that?
The issue with that, you know, I don't want to comment on that at this time, but it was nothing nefarious. Those were just money spent. I would call them entertainment expenses. Any other questions? I know the sheriff's here. We got the treasurer.
And if you would talk about on this the bidding process, what does the law require for, you know, service providers to a you know, governmental entity in terms of going out for bid and having contracts?
Well, you know, as public officials, one of the numbers that is burned into our head is $50,000. If you're spending $50,000 or more, you need to go through a bidding process, and that's really to protect taxpayer funds. Obviously, we have an aggregate amount of money to 2 different vendors that well exceed $50,000, and in many instances, invoices were paid on the same day that exceed $50,000 to a single vendor. So, again, those are issues for the special prosecutor, but it does appear that competitive bidding was circumvented. And there's also laws that require other approvals for IT expenditures, and those laws were not followed either.
And in the course of the investigation, have you come across anything that sort of flagged, you know, or put these 2 companies on the radar in terms of, you know, who are they and what type of investigation was going in before you guys got involved as to who these companies are and why are they getting paid so much?
Well, there was you know, there was definitely an issue with the auditor's employee with the one vendor. Now, the one vendor, that was a more recent occurrence. There was some suspicions, I guess, as to how that vendor was set up in the system, and that's what the auditor employee noticed and came to us with. It wasn't until after we started doing a bank review and we subpoenaed those bank accounts that we discovered that this other vendor was sending an incredible amount of money over the years to SMCS Tech.
And another thing is, it's from talking with the auditor, it was suggested that these companies were hired because Mr. Decatur was diagnosed with cancer and was needing, you know, to undergo treatment. Any truth to that?
Again, by law, the auditor is the chief administrator of IT in the county. So those were decisions that the county auditor made and that were made within his office. So I'm not really aware of that.
That Decatur is suffering or has been diagnosed with cancer?
I do believe he has some sort of health affliction, but I couldn't specifically say what it is. I know that's what he claims. Any other questions? Okay, thank you all very much for coming. I appreciate your time.
Good job.